Well, hi everyone out there in Vision 100 land. I hope you're all doing well and recovering now from the crazy year that was 2020. My name's David Lynch and I'm the pastor at Summerleas Church, and I've been asked by Vision 100 just to reflect a little bit about what it's been like for us at Summerleas to move to two congregations. Now, I'm sure this is something that many of you have had to think about over the past 6 or 7 months, and maybe it's even something that you've done. Perhaps you've made that move to two congregations. And of course, we all know why we've had to do that, don't we? COVID. COVID has had an enormous impact on what it means for us to gather as church. And for those of us that are in larger churches or churches that have smaller buildings where we're all a bit sort of squashed in, I mean, it's just been impossible, hasn't it, for us to meet the way that we were, whilst at the same time maintaining COVID-safe social distancing practices, etc., etc. Thus, two congregations or two services it is for many of us now. Now, I'm guessing that for some of you, this has just been another COVID hassle. And really, you're just sitting there and you can't wait to get back to just being one congregation again. Maybe you've already switched back to that and you're really relieved. But at Summerleas, it hasn't been like that for us. We've reframed it. And actually, for us, we've seen it as more of a COVID gift than anything. Now, I get that sounds a little bit strange. But the reason that I say that is that multiplying into two congregations was something that we had as part of our current 3 to 5 year vision anyway. And we're actually looking at doing it early in 2021 because we were going to have major kids facilities issues if we didn't. We just didn't have enough space for all the kids we had. We're going to have issues with Sunday school, all those kinds of things. So we needed to make a shift. We were going to do it in early 2021. So COVID really proved to be a big catalyst that got us moving on this, I guess, about 6 months earlier than we'd planned on. And I would never have said this when we were going through lockdown, but as strange as it is to say, I think that whole lockdown COVID crisis period actually helped us to make this massive change in ways that we'd never really expected. So it was interesting, after we adopted our current 3 to 5 year vision, I actually started chatting to pastors of different churches who had already made that shift to two congregations. And I've got to be honest, universally, everyone I spoke to, it seemed as though it was a really big, hard thing to do. It sounded really tough. Under normal circumstances, it's a huge change management process, and I could see that it was going to be really hard work at Summerleas as well. We weren't going to be an exception to that. It was going to be hard for us, and I could just see the amount of work this was going to take. Now, don't get me wrong. It has been challenging, and there are still challenges that we're grappling with. But on reflection, I think the whole COVID ordeal really shaped us and helped us to cope with the change in 3 key ways. Okay. First of all, it got us used to change. I mean, I still can't believe the amount of change we went through from mid-March 2020. I mean, church, of course, changed beyond belief. It was barely recognisable, was it? In a matter of weeks, it went from normal to about as abnormal as you could possibly ever imagine it being. But it wasn't just church. Nearly everything changed for everyone. And things kept changing. It's not like they just changed a little bit and then that was it. They just kept changing and changing and changing. And so we got kind of used to changing stuff and changing stuff radically. Changing kind of became normal. The second thing that lockdown did was that it showed us that we were more resilient than we ever dreamed. We didn't all fall to pieces. Stuff kept going. We adapted. We upskilled. Nothing was perfect, but, we made it work. I remember in about April really wondering, what would Summerleas be like by the end of 2020? I mean, would there even be a Summerleas left? But there was. Yeah, I don't think many people at Summerleas actually had any idea about just how resilient they are. It had never been tested. But I think COVID really gave a lot of people confidence that they could cope with extreme change and bounce back. The final thing that I think it did was that it made us more forgiving when it came to things not being perfect. It gave us a higher tolerance for imperfection, if you will. We learnt that big time, didn't we? Like throughout that whole lockdown period, because nothing was perfect. Nothing was. We all muddled along and did our best with Zoom and whatever it was that we had, but nothing was perfect. But we learnt that actually, you know what? Stuff doesn't have to be perfect. God can keep us going. He can do his work anyway. Now, when it came to planting a new congregation, hopefully you can see how those three things really helped us. They all really came together because it meant that we had a group of people who weren't terrified of change. Our community wasn't terrified of change anymore. What's more, we had a community that was adaptable and who knew that they could survive big changes. And we also had a community who was willing for stuff to be imperfect and to tolerate mistakes, etc., while we kind of soft launched and tweaked and built things up. Now, of course, it hasn't been easy. There's still stuff we're working through. Multiplying congregations will always be hard work. But on reflection, I'm actually really thankful for the way that God worked in us through some very trying times to prepare us for this exciting new step in our next 3 to 5 year vision. Thanks for listening.